The Year of the Dog, Chapter 1, A Sweet New Year. Happy New Year, Dad laughed into the phone. Gonji, ni call ni. The phone had been ringing all night with relatives calling to wish us a happy Chinese New Year. If we had lived in Taiwan, we would have been having a big dinner with all our relatives, aunts and uncles and cousins. But since we lived in New Hartford, New York, they called us instead. Yes, Dad said over the phone to Uncle Leo. Happy Year of the Dog. What does that mean when it's the Year of the Dog? I asked. Our kitchen was full of rich, heavy smells because Mom and Lizzie were cooking the special Chinese New Year dinner. I was teaching Kiki how to draw a dog for our decorations. I knew every Chinese New Year is a different animal, but is something special supposed to happen because it's the Year of the Dog? Yes, Lizzie told me, nodding her head so hard that her black hair swung back and forth. Lizzie always thought she knew everything. You know how they say a dog is a man's best friend? Well, in the Year of the Dog, you find your best friends. That's true, Mom said. Her hands swung speckled meat around, or mixing speckled brown meat, because dogs are faithful. They say the Year of the Dog is the year for friends and family. But there's more to that. There's more to it than that. The Year of the Dog is also for thinking. Since dogs are also honest and sincere, it's a good year to find yourself. Find myself, Kiki said. Why? I'm not lost. We all laughed and Mom tried to explain. No, she said. Finding yourself means deciding what your values are, what you want to do, that kind of thing. Like deciding what you want to be when you grow up, I asked. Yes, Mom nodded her head. Well, Lizzie said, I've decided I'm definitely not going to be a chef because I'm tired of cooking. We still have to make shrimp, the pork, the vegetables. We're never going to eat. We will, Mom says. She looked at her clock. Pacey, stop drawing and go fill the New Year tray. I went to the cabinet, took out the New Year tray. We had polished it so much that you could see myself shining in the red and black wood. I also took out a bag of special Chinese New Year candy. It's very important that the New Year tray is filled with candy. If it's filled with sweet things, it means your year will be full of sweet things. Kiki hung up the drawings, then came over to help me. Though she didn't really help much, all she did was eat the candy. She loved New Year's candy. I don't know why. It isn't real candy like chocolate or lollipops. New Year candy is sticky taffy melon candy, the color of the moon. Kiki kept eating the candy, so I couldn't fill the whole tray. I looked in the cupboard for more, but there wasn't any more. But there were rainbow-colored M&Ms. I loved M&Ms. That's real candy, so I filled the rest of the tray with that. When Lizzie saw the tray, her mouth made a big O. You can't fill the tray with M&Ms, she told me. It's a Chinese tray. Only Chinese candy is supposed to go in it. But there's not enough candy to fill it, I told her. We both looked at the tray. We couldn't decide if it was better to have a tray be half empty with only Chinese candy or full with Chinese and American candy. Mom was frying food, so we took the tray to Dad. He scooped up a big handful of Chinese candy and M&Ms and ate it. This way is good, he said. You should have both Chinese and American candy for the new year. It's just like us, Chinese American. I think it's going to be a very sweet year. Chapter 2, How to Get Rich. Time to eat, Mom called. In the dining room, there was so much food. There was a whole fried fish, crispy and brown, meat dumplings fried golden, vegetables shining with oil, steamed buns that looked like puffy clouds, shrimp in a milky sauce, and pork colored with a brilliant ruby pink. The fish's eyes stared at me. I didn't like it. So I turned the plate around so it would look at Lizzie instead. She turned it back toward me. I turned it again. Finally, we had it look at Kiki. She didn't notice. Everything we eat at dinner has a special meaning, Dad said. Those vegetables mean wealth. Well, how about the shrimp? I asked. That means wealth too, Dad said. What does the pork mean? Lizzie asked. Wealth too, said Dad. Everything means wealth, Lizzie. All you care about is money. Well, don't you want to be rich? Mom asked. Yes, Lizzie and I said at the same time. Kiki nodded her head. I want to be a millionaire, I said. I want to be a gazillionaire, Lizzie said. Me too, Kiki said. Me too. Well, eat these, Mom told us, passing us fried dumplings. They say these symbolize golden coins. If you eat them, you'll be rich. I don't know how they're going to make me rich, I said. They don't look like gold coins to me. Maybe that's what coins look like in the olden days, Lizzie whispered. I'm going to eat 'em all, Dad teased. And then I'll have all the money and you'll have none. That's not fair, I said, trying to grab some dumplings off his plate. Give me some. I'll sell you one for $1, Dad said. That's how you get rich. The phone rang again. This time it was Grandpa calling to say Happy New Year. I bet Grandpa ate lots of these dumplings, Lizzie said. Grandpa's rich. Maybe he charged $2 for each dumpling, I joked. Actually, Mom said, Grandpa got rich by doing a job for free. Did I ever tell you the story about Grandpa's first patient? We all shook our heads and Mom started the story. How Grandpa got rich. When Grandpa graduated medical school, was officially a doctor, he was so proud, but he had a problem. He had no patients. It seemed like whenever people were sick, they went to someone else. They wanted to go and see Grandpa, or no one wanted to go see Grandpa, a young doctor with no experience. Still, with the help of his parents, he opened a small clinic in the neighborhood. Sometimes his mother would come over saying she had back pain, so he would cure her. Sometimes Grandpa would use a stethoscope on himself just to make sure it was working. But most of the time, Grandpa just sat alone, like the last dumpling on the plate. Then one night, just when the sky began to get darkened with shadows, there was a frantic banging on the door. A street vendor had been robbed and was badly hurt. His clothes looked like dish rags of blood. His wife begged for help. Grandpa jumped up and worked hard to save the vendor's life. He worked deep into the night, and he only stopped when the moon hung like a freshly peeled lychee in the sky. Finally, the patient was out of danger. Grandpa left him with his wife in the clinic and told them he would check on them in the morning. But when Grandpa woke up the next morning and went to check on his patient at the clinic, there was no one there. The bed was made and the room was as clean as an empty bowl of rice. He had dreamed it all. Later, Grandpa had found out that his patient was very poor. He and his wife had sneaked away after Grandpa had left because they knew they could not pay him. In fact, right after the accident, the wife had brought the vendor to 2 other doctors before Grandpa. The other doctors had refused to operate because they knew he couldn't pay. Grandpa, on the other hand, didn't even think about asking for payment and just hurried to save his life. So it looked like Grandpa's first patient was going to be free of charge. Grandpa worried because he thought that if he didn't look like a good start for his business. He had his family's support, and they were counting on him to make money as a doctor. Was the first patient a sign of the future? But he shouldn't have worried. Like the smell of roast pig, the news of Grandpa's work spread around the village. People were warmed by the fact that Grandpa cared more for their lives than their money. They stopped seeing their other doctors and came to see him instead. Soon, he had more patients than he could handle. And that is how Grandpa became rich. Money, Mom finished. Then she looked at the empty table. Oh, there's no food for me. Chapter 3, Welcoming the New Year. After dinner, Mom gave us our homeboy special red envelopes the color of fully bloomed poinsettias with money in them. Mine had $5. That was a lot of money, but not enough to make me rich. Lizzie got 10 since she was older. Then, Mom got us ready for bed. Kiki had her own room and her own bed, but never slept the whole night there. She always got up in the middle of the night and went down to sleep with Mom and Dad. Lizzie and I shared a room. Our room was buttercup yellow with flowers dancing on the walls. The carpet was bright blue, so I pretend it was the ocean, and swim to the bunk beds. Lizzie slept on the top bunk because she was older and Mom was afraid I would roll off in the middle of the night. But I don't like sleeping on the bottom. What if the bed broke and Lizzie came crashing through? Lizzie would be okay because she'd be on the top and everything would crush me. Traditionally, Mom told us as she was helping Kiki put on her faded sky-colored pajamas, you are supposed to stay up as late as you can on Chinese New Year. The longer you stay up, the longer your parents will live. The longer your parents' lives will be. So I should try and keep you up all night. But tomorrow is school and everyone goes to sleep. Aren't you worried? I asked. We should stay up so then we can have a long life. Yeah, Lizzie said, let's stay up. We don't have to go to school tomorrow. No school, Kiki chanted, no school. Silly's Mom said, everyone is going to sleep early and everyone is going to school tomorrow. But after she left, I worried, what if I went to sleep too soon and gave Mom and Dad a short life? If I stayed up an extra minute, would they live an extra year or an extra day? Don't go to bed yet. Let's stay up, Lizzie said. Okay, Lizzie said. But I could tell she was thinking more about staying up late than Mom and Dad's lives. We turned on our lights and Lizzie took out her book. She was reading Mary Poppins. It was a very different book from the Disney movie we saw. In the book, Mary Poppins is really grouchy or grumpy, but the characters have better adventures. They even see a circus in the stars. I wonder why they didn't put that in the movie, and Lizzie said it's probably because it was too hard to make the animals glitter. I opened the book. It's called B is for Betsy, and it's about an American girl going to school. I liked it very much, but I couldn't stop thinking about what Mom said about the year of the dog, and how it was a year I should think about what I wanted to do when I grow up. Lizzie, I asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm going to be a doctor, Lizzie said, like Dad and Grandpa. I don't know what I want to be, I said. You should be a doctor too, Lizzie said. You can be rich and by being a doctor. You can't get rich being something else. I asked. Movie stars are rich. You can't be a movie star, Lizzie said. You have to be beautiful to be a movie star. You're not pretty enough to be a movie star. I stuck my tongue out at her, but since she was at the top bunk, she didn't see it. Besides, she continued, you have to have acting talent to be an actress. You better pick something you have talent in. How do I know if I'm talented at something? I asked. I don't know, Lizzie said carelessly. I could hear her turning the page of her book. Maybe if you won an award or something. But I never won anything, I said. Well, maybe you'll win something later, Lizzie said. I could tell she wasn't really paying attention to me. There's lots of time. That's true. I had a whole year to figure things out. I watched the stars light up like a string of Christmas lights while I thought about what the new year would bring. When I heard Lizzie snore, I turned off the lamp and went to sleep. The dog of the year was here. Chapter 4, Talent. Soon, Mom was shaking me awake. My eyelids felt heavy as a sack of rice. Wake up, sleepyhead, Mom said. You'll be late for school. No, I mumbled, and I turned over. Wake up, my mom said, pulling me up. I sat up and groaned. I'm too tired to go to school, I said. You're just too lazy, Mom said, teasing me. Get up. So before I knew it, I was getting dressed and brushing my teeth. I went downstairs to have breakfast. Mom put a bowl of watery rice porridge and a flaky dried pork in front of me. I yawned. Do I have to go to school? I moaned. Yes, Mom said. How else will you learn things? Besides, you shouldn't start off the year of the dog as a lazy dog. Will you teach me what I'm talented at? I asked. Mom mentioning the year dog reminded me about finding herself. Yes, Mom said. I'm sure it will. No, Lizzie couldn't. It won't. You have to have talent to discover it. You don't have any. I opened my mouth to retort, but a yawn interrupted me. I'm too tired to go to school, I said. Better wake up, Chi-Chi chanted. Better wake up. Yeah, Lizzie said. Don't fall asleep in school. Mom poured me a glass of juice and laughed. Did I ever tell you about the time I fell asleep in school? Mom sleeps in school. In Taiwan, school it was different than it is here. School wasn't just to teach you about reading and writing. It was supposed to teach you about how to be a good citizen as well. Every Monday there was a school assembly. All the students had to wear their special uniform, a seaweed-colored jumper, shirt, and hat. It had to be clean, unwrinkled, and as stiff as a piece of cardboard. Then, in this uncomfortable uniforms, we had to stand outside the courtyard while the principal and the vice principal and the guidance counselors gave long, important speeches. They would say how crucial it is that we all follow the rules and work hard. It was so boring. One day we had an extra long assembly. Not only were the principal and the vice principal and the guidance counselor speaking, but they had special guests. He was from the government, and he was going to lecture about how we always do what we were told and not question authority. It was hot, sticky day. The sun was like a egg yolk frying in the sky. And the hundreds and hundreds of students stood like army ants. I stood at the very back, lost in the ocean of blackheads. At these lectures, no one was allowed to whisper like soldiers listening to orders from their captain. We had to stand up straight with our hands on our sides, giving the adults our absolute attention. But when the guest speaker spoke, his voice was so soft, I couldn't understand what he was saying. It was a low, mumbling, swaying in the courtyard. To me, it was like a lullaby. My eyes started to drop. My head nodded, and then suddenly I was asleep. When I woke up, I was alone in the courtyard, except for a teacher glaring at me with her hands on her hips. I had fallen asleep so soundly that I was standing there when everyone was gone inside. They had just left me there, standing asleep. The teacher was so angry with me. She put a big mark next to my name, and I was so embarrassed. Mom finished, but I had never fallen asleep in school again. You could sleep standing up? I asked, now wide awake. I could sleep anywhere, Mom said. I was very talented. Chapter 5, A Surprise. To get to school, Lizzie and I had to walk down the street to the bus stop. Next year, Lizzie wouldn't be going to the bus stop with me. Lizzie also was almost a teenager. Next year, she would go to junior high school on a different bus. Then I would be the only Chinese girl in the whole elementary school. But not really Chinese either. It's kind of confusing. My parents came from Taiwan. Some people thought Taiwan was part of China. So then, calling me Chinese was kind of correct. Other people thought Taiwan was a country all by itself, so then I should be called Taiwanese. It didn't help that my parents spoke Chinese and Taiwanese. So when people ask me what I am I supposed to tell them once I asked Mom? Tell them you're American, Mom told me firmly. But my friends didn't call me Chinese, Taiwanese, or American. They called me Grace, my American name. One of my friends at school was Becky Williams. Becky was tall, with hair as brown as tree bark. At recess, I told her that it was the Chinese New Year of the dog, so she drew dogs on the ground with chalk. I taught Becky how to draw the dog just like the ones I drew for our New Year's decorations. What does it mean when it's the year of the dog? Becky asked. Does that mean Scruffy gets to boss me around? Maybe he'll eat dinner at the dinner table, and I'll have to eat on the floor. I laughed, but I didn't know how to explain it. Chinese people give every year an animal sign, I tried to explain. You know how horoscopes use animals for some months? Well, Chinese people, it's every year. When it is the year of the unicorn, Becky asked. I love unicorns. I shook my head. I don't think that there's a year of the unicorns, Becky asked, really disappointed. So I tried to think of something. But maybe during leap year or something, they will have a unicorn day. Really? What do they do on unicorn day? I scrambled because now I was completely lying. They draw pictures of unicorns and hang them up. Sometimes it's a parade. Cool, Becky said, excited. Will you tell me when that day is so we can celebrate? Okay, I said, but I hoped that by that time leap year came, she would have forgot all about it. Like an alarm clock, the bell rang and we lined up to go into the cafeteria. It was spaghetti day. Yum! I love spaghetti, even though I always thought it was strange that they served it with an ice cream scoop. The spaghetti always looked like tennis balls on my plate, but when I went to take my plate to the lunch lady, stopped me. Hey, she said, I just saw you. You already took lunch. Everyone else gets one. No, I said. I didn't. This is my first time. Yes, you did, the lunch lady said. You took spaghetti and french fries. No, I said. I didn't get anything. Are you sure, the lunch lady said? I know it was you. It wasn't, Becky said. Honest. The lunch lady gave me lunch, but I could tell she didn't believe us. She kept shaking her head and looking at us suspiciously. When we went to sit down, Becky nudged me. Look over there, she said, pointing. That's why the lunch lady thought you already got lunch. I looked where she was pointing, and I saw a girl that looked Chinese, just like me. I hadn't noticed her before because she had all been bundled up with a fuzzy scarf and a hat. She was brand new. I couldn't wait to meet her. Chapter 6. A new year, a new friend. Becky and I sat next to the new girl. She smiled at me. Hello, she said. Are you Pacey? How do you know? I asked. My mother told me about you. My mother met your mother last week. Didn't you know? She said, you said there would be another Asian girl in school. Her name's not Pacey, Becky said, pointing at me. It's Grace. Grace is my name at school. I rushed to explain. My mom calls me Pacey. The new girl frowned and looked, a little confused, but said, well, anyways, my name's Melody Ling. Ling, Becky said. That's like Grace's last name, L-I-N, Lin. Melody nodded, except with the G, L-I-N-G. We found out that Melody and I had lots of things that were almost the same. Well, I had an older sister and a younger sister. She had an older brother and a younger brother. We both had long black hair. She had bangs, and I didn't. We both played a violin, but I was like Suzuki Book 3, and she was in Suzuki Book 2. We both couldn't write in Chinese, but she could speak in it, and I couldn't. My birthday was May 17th, and Melody's birthday was July 17th. You're almost twins, Becky said. Lucky. My mom must have forgotten to tell me about you, she said, probably because it's Chinese New Year. Yeah, Becky said, it's the year of the dog. Grace is going to tell me when it's the day of the unicorn, so we can celebrate that. A day of the unicorn, Melody said. There's no day of the unicorn. Yes, there is, Becky said. It's during leap year, and there's a parade, and we hang pictures. Grace said so. Melody looked at me and I felt myself turning red. I must have made a mistake, I mumbled. Oh, Melody said, the day of the unicorn, I forgot. My family doesn't celebrate it, so I didn't remember. But you're right, it's a big festival. Melody grinned at me and I smiled back. I knew we were going to be good friends. Chapter 7. Almost Twins. When I came home from school, I couldn't wait to tell Mom about Melody. But of course, she already knew about it. Mom told me how she had gone grocery shopping and was surprised to see another Asian woman doing the same thing. The woman was so happy to see another Asian person that she went up to my mom and introduced herself. Melody's parents were from Taiwan, too, so they were both Chinese American. Mom said she would take me over to see Melody's new house. That was fun, going to see Melody's new house. She had the best room. One whole wall of her room was a picture of jungle animals. There was a lion staring at the grass, a monkey climbing trees. There was even a pink flamingo. How did you get your wall like that? I asked, impressed. It came that way, Melody said. If you look close, you can see that it's kind of wallpaper, not painted. I looked really closely, and I could see a tiny line down the side. It was a huge ceiling-to-floor poster. We could try to draw the animals in Melody's notebook. I couldn't copy the lion very well, but Melody thought my elephant drawing was exactly like the one on the wall. Melody's brothers, Benji and Felix, came in to draw too. We drew Melody riding in the giraffe, Felix swinging from the vine. Benji and Felix weren't too bad for boys. After Benji drew himself feeding bananas to the monkeys, he said, I'm hungry. Let's go get some real bananas. That's when we realized we were all hungry, so we went downstairs to eat. In my house, my mom always had cookies or chocolate or cheese or crackers in the cupboards. If we didn't have those, there was always fruit in a can that I could eat too. But Melody didn't have any of those things. My mom told me Melody's mom was very nutritious. So in the cupboards there was only plain rice cakes, tasted like paper. There were nuts that were still in shells and didn't have any salt on them. But there weren't any bananas. Don't you have any candy? I asked. No, Melody said, but we have vitamins. They're kind of sweet. So we opened a big jar of vitamins. There was a big letter C on them. They were thin and flat and tasted like oranges. They were pretty good. Not as good as candy, but still yummy. We sat on the floor eating vitamins. Melody's mom came in the room and was surprised to see us around the big jar of vitamins. She seemed a little upset with us. I didn't know why. I thought she would be happy that we were being so healthy. What are you doing? She said. You shouldn't be eating vitamins like that. We were hungry, Melody said. Well, it's almost dinner time, she said. I'll make you something better to eat. Pacey, why don't you call your mom to see if you can stay here for dinner? I called Mom and went back to Melody's room. My mom called you Pacey, Melody said. Your mom and your sisters called you that too, but everyone at school calls you Grace. How come? Oh, I have two names, I told her, an American name and a Chinese name. Why don't they just call you one of them, Melody asked. Don't you get mixed up? Well, I said, it's like this. How my name changed to Pacey to Grace. One day, on my first day of school, the teacher asked me, what is your name? Right away, I said, Grace Lin. But she looked at her roster and shook her head. She said, no, you're a big girl now. You don't go by that name anymore. It says here your name is Grace. I didn't understand. I just nodded my head. I knew I shouldn't tell the teacher she was wrong, but I kept thinking she had a mistake. Maybe the teacher had me mixed up with another girl, and I was supposed to be somewhere else. Maybe she was me and I was her, and how could I find her? On the bus ride home, I asked Lizzie about it. Oh, those are Americans' names, Lizzie said. They call me Beatrice. Mom and Dad gave us American and Chinese names. I think the people at the hospital told them when we were born. Well, I don't want to be called Pacey, I grumbled. Don't be stupid, Lizzie said. Pacey is too weird for everyone. They want to know how to say it. If you ask Lizzie, they'd ask, is it Lisi or Licey? And then they'd ask, why do Chinese people always have to have these weird names? Just let them call you Grace. I still wasn't convinced people won't know which one is really me. Look, Lizzie said, it's like an egg foo young. At home we call it foo young dung. At restaurants they call it egg foo young. So it's easier for Americans to say. But it's still the same egg pancake. You know what you're eating, and when Mom gives it to you, don't you? You know what to order at restaurants. It's not that hard. So now I finished. Everyone at school calls me by my American name, and everyone at home calls me by my Chinese name. Well, Melody said, I guess it's kind of cool. It's a nickname. But do you want me to call you Pacey or Grace? I thought a minute. I call myself both names, I said. We're almost twins, so I can call you me both names. Chapter 8, Dinner at Melodies. Felix came into the room and told us dinner was ready. I was glad because my stomach was grumbling. What's for dinner? I asked. Chinese food, of course, Felix said. The same as your house, probably. When we got downstairs, I wasn't surprised to see Melody's mother opening her rice cooker. We had rice every day at our house, too, but Melody's mother was scooping out a big spoonfuls of brown rice. We've never had brown rice at my house, only white rice. And then on the table were the vegetables weren't stir-fried, and the tofu didn't have any shiny sauce on it. Everything was plain and colorless and dry. Are you sure this is Chinese food? I asked Melanie. Melody's mother shook her head. This is Chinese food cooked the healthy way, she told me. It's very good for you. Try it. You'll like it. I tried it, but I didn't like it. To me, the rice was too crunchy and chewy, and the vegetables and tofu were tasteless. Yuck. I looked at Melody, Benji, and Felix. How could they eat this? But they didn't seem to think it was too bad. They put everything in their mouths and swallowed it. I just kept pushing the rice on one side of my plate to the other. Aren't you hungry? Melody asked. I thought I was, she said, but I guess not. Melody's mother looked at me worried. I hope eating all those vitamins didn't make you sick. Could a person get sick from eating too many healthy things? Maybe I was already full from the nutritious things from the vitamins that my body couldn't take anymore. Maybe that was why dinner tasted so bad. We had dried apricots for dessert. They looked like shriveled orange mushrooms. I only had one, but that time I was convinced it was my body because my body couldn't fit any more nutrition, but Melody's mother worried that this was something else. I called my mom and talked to her for a long time in Taiwanese. My mom came over, picked me up right away. She put her hand on the back of my head and said I felt okay, but she did bring me home just in case. In the car, she said, "It's too bad you got sick. It sounded like you were having a good time." It was fun, I said, but can Melody come over to our house for dinner next time? Chapter 9, Red Eggs. Melody and I became best friends, like two chopsticks. We were always together. She came over to my house and I went over to hers. One day she came over to help color eggs. They were my cousin Albert's red egg party. He was just born, so we were going to visit him in New Jersey. When you go to the red egg party, you have to bring red eggs. Red eggs symbolize good luck for the new baby. I guess the more red eggs Albert got, the more lucky he'd be. I'd get sick of eating all those eggs though. Coloring eggs with red was fun. Lizzie, Kiki, Melody, and I dipped lucky red envelopes in warm water and then rubbed the red coloring onto the eggs. Lizzie got red dye on her nose and I laughed at her. Is there such things as red egg color? I asked. That would be a fun job. No, Melody said. There aren't enough red egg parties for you to do that for real. Americans don't have red egg parties. But Chinese people do, I said. Every time a Chinese baby is born, there's a red egg party. Maybe that would be enough. Not all Chinese babies give red egg parties, Lizzie said. You didn't? I didn't. Why not? I asked. Probably because you didn't deserve it, Lizzie said. You were the worst baby. You cried all the time. And then you got so sick. They took you to the hospital. Mom and Dad were so worried. They had to put a tube on your ankle and put you in a plastic box. Lizzie went to go wash her hands and get some paper to wrap the eggs in. Gee, what did I have? Melody asked. I know, Kiki piped up. You got sick from pneumonia, Mom told me. Pneumonia? I asked. Isn't that stuff on a window cleaner? Melody and I looked at each other. You must have been allergic to it, Melody said. But we have window cleaner now, I said. I saw it in the closet. We went to the closet and looked at all the bottles. The bottles were on a shelf lined up in a row. The window cleaner was in the middle and looked like a bottle of swimming pool water. There it is, I said. You better not touch it, Melody. You might get sick. It must be a mistake that we have it, I said. Maybe my mother forgot I was allergic to it. I'll throw it away just for you, Melody said, reaching for it. What are you guys doing? Lizzie asked us. I guess getting rid of ammonia so Pacey won't get sick again, Melody explained. Lizzie started to laugh. She snatched the window cleaner from Melody and looked at me mechanically. Are you afraid of ammonia? She cracked up, aiming the spray bottle at me. Stop, Melody screamed. Kiki screamed too, and I started to run. Melody tried to grab the window cleaner away from Lizzie, and I hid behind the sofa. What is going on? I heard my mom say. I crept over the back of the sofa. Lizzie was going to spray me with window cleaner, I said. Melanie nodded in support. Lizzie, put the window cleaner away, and you, my mom said to me, why are you so scared of window cleaner all of a sudden? Because it has pneumonia, I said, and told her the whole story. Mom laughed and shook her head. Then she explained to us that I was a baby, I had pneumonia, which is a very bad cold. It is a different thing than ammonia. But if you were allergic, she said, it would be very nice if Melody would try to keep you from getting sick. I guess you almost saved my life, I told her. Melody grinned, but whenever anyone mentioned window cleaner after that, we both turned red from embarrassment. Chapter 10. Albert's party. Melody went home and we packed up the eggs and all our suitcases into the car. Then Mom made us get all dressed up in our fancy Chinese clothes. My dress was dark paisley green. It felt smooth and cool, like a polished jade statue. Lizzie's dress was peacock blue, and Kiki wore a pink dress with flowers embroidered on it. The dresses were all silky and shiny and had collars that buttoned close around our necks. The tight collars made it hard to breathe, but I didn't say anything because then I would be acting like a baby like Kiki. Mom had to leave her collar open because she fussed so much. Finally, we got in the car and drove to Albert's house. He lived far away, so far that I got to miss school. We didn't have to travel as far as Grandma and Grandpa, though. They were coming all the way from Taiwan to see Albert. But they didn't go to school, so it didn't matter. It was a long drive. Sometimes I steamed up the window with my breath and drew a dog with my finger. I tried to think about what I wanted to be when I grew up. Nothing came to mind. Lizzie and Kiki just snored. Sometimes we listened to the music. My mom put on a tape with songs on it, and we sang along. My favorite song was the one that went like this. Lizzie, there was a hole, passing Kiki. There was a hole. Lizzie, the prettiest hole, passing Kiki. The prettiest hole, Lizzie, that you ever did see. Passing Kiki, that you ever did see. The song kept going on like that. With the bird's nest in the tree that grew from a hole, we made Mom play it over and over again. Dad got very tired of the song. He said he was going to put the tape in a hole. When we finally got to Albert's house, it was dark outside. Auntie Kim, Uncle Leo, Grandma and Grandpa had lots of other cousins, aunts and uncles came out and welcomed us inside. They were all wearing their special silk clothes. In the moonlight, we shimmered like stained glass window. Grandma's dress was silky silver gray. She glowed like a pearl ring. All our relatives hugged and kissed us and asked Jabugi over and over again. That meant, have you eaten yet in Taiwanese? I thought that was a silly question. Of course we hadn't eaten yet. We had all been in the car the whole time. It was so crowded in the house. Red eggs were everywhere. Albert's name was written in Chinese on big pieces of red paper. Grandma and Grandpa hugged us again and again. We hadn't seen them in a long time. Cousin Jimmy, Sylvia, Austin were there. So were Uncle Wally and Aunt Judy. So many people. Albert was sleeping in the crib. I didn't know how he could sleep with all these people around, but he did. He had a round, flat face with red cheeks. He looked like a red egg, but it could have been because he was sleeping on all those red envelopes. Relatives kept coming by and slipping those envelopes stuffed with money into the crib. It reminded me that I still had to think about how I was going to get rich. Luckily, Albert, he was already rich. On the table there were brown stir-fried noodles, cooked duck shiny with oil, fresh leeches with other prickly pink skins, eggplant in brown sauce, shrimp with vegetables, snow white rice, and puffy white pork buns with flame-colored meat. There was also a big bowl of yellow ginger and chicken soup. Only women can eat that, Uncle Leo told us. It gives them energy so they can take care of the babies. Since Lizzie and Kiki and I were girls, we decided to try a little. Besides, it was fun to be able to eat something that the boys couldn't have. It was a thick and oily tasting. Didn't really like it, but we pretended it was delicious, just to make Cousin Jimmy jealous. While we were all at the table, Uncle Sam came downstairs to welcome us. Jabubi, he asked us, have you eaten yet? They kept asking that. Grown-ups were so silly. We're eating right now, I said. Everyone laughed. I don't understand why they were laughing at me. What's so funny? I demanded. Mom asked to me, even though even though Jabumi meant, have you eaten yet? It was also a Taiwanese way of saying, how are you doing? It's because food is so important to us, Uncle Leo told me. Everything is about food. Yes, Aunt Kim said. She pointed to Albert's new banner. Do you know about Albert's name? Do you know what Albert's name means? It means cooking duck. See, we even name our kids after food. Really? It was funny. I laughed with everyone else. Then, can I have some more, Albert? Everyone laughed as Mom put more duck on my plate. Chapter 11, Tiger Chasing Pig. There were a lot of people staying at Albert's house. All the uncles and aunts tried to plan who slept where. It didn't seem like there would be enough room for all of us. Dad said we should make all the kids go sleep in the driveway. I didn't like that. Finally, Auntie Kim unrolled a bunch of sleeping bags and all the kids slept on the floor in the dining room. Lizzie, Kiki, Cousin Jimmy, and I slept under the table. The next morning I opened my eyes and saw a pair of gold-embroidered slippers full of feet in front of my face. I sat up quickly, hit my head on the table. Ouch, I said. Careful, I heard Aunt Judy say. You almost made me spill my juice. I looked around and saw legs all around me, like prison bars. I heard glasses clinking and bowls moving overhead. I pushed through a pair of legs and crawled out from under the table. Aren't you lucky, Dad said. You get to have breakfast in bed. No, it's breakfast over bed, said Lizzie, and everyone laughed. Mom got a chair for me and gave me a bowl of steaming rice porridge. She put some fried egg and my favorite flaky salt-dried pork on top of the bowl. As I bent my head to eat, I felt a sharp pain in my neck. My neck hurts, I complained. Oh, you probably from sleeping on the floor, Mom said. It'll go away. Grandma asked. Grandma and Grandpa didn't speak English that well, so sometimes they didn't know what we were talking about. Mom spoke to Grandma in Taiwanese, repeating what I had said. Ah, Grandma nodded her head at me wisely. I know I can fix. After breakfast, Grandma brought me into her room. She took out a small green silk box that had dragon embroidered on it. Was Grandma going to give me a necklace? That was the only thing that I could imagine would be in such a special box. But when she opened it, there was only a bamboo paintbrush, the color of dried grass, and some dull black stones inside. Grandma rubbed the black stones with some water, and I could see they were making a deep black ink. Grandma motioned me over, turned me around, and pushed the back of my shirt collar down. Then she had me hold up my hair. This is a tiger, Grandma said, and she felt the cool tip of a paintbrush on the back of my neck like a wet butterfly wing. She made some quick movements and felt the paintbrush flutter. This is a pig, she said. Then Grandma blew a soft breeze on my neck to help the paint dry. Leave and Tiger will chase pig, she told me, running will help my neck. What was she talking about? What had she done? I went to the bathroom and stared. I had black marks, like leopard spots, painted on both sides of my neck. Would it wash off? I didn't dare do it right away. Grandma said leave, but what if my skin got stained black with those marks? And what was it that she was saying about pigs and tigers running? I ran to show my mom. When she saw paint, she laughed. She painted the Chinese for tiger on one side of my neck and the pig on the other. She told me, the tiger should chase the pig. The running will massage your neck and make you feel better. Will the paint come off? I asked. I don't want to go to school with pig written on my neck. It sure will, my mom said. But does your neck feel better? I stopped thought for a moment. Well, yes, I nodded. It does. Chapter 12, Luck. The paint did wash off, and soon we were hugging all our cousins and aunts and Grandma and Grandpa goodbye and driving home. When I went back to school, even though I had been gone for 3 whole days, nothing had changed. The only thing that was different was that I was behind on all my homework. Melody was glad I was back. As soon as she saw me run, she ran to tell me news. Guess what, Melody said. Becky said that Heather said that Teddy liked someone. She was talking about Teddy Jackson. We both had a crush on him. He had brown, blonde hair, the color of sand, the eyes like a rainy sky. He was like the cutest boy in the whole school. Or at least I thought so. Melody thought Sam Mercer was cuter. Really? I said. Who? She doesn't know, Melody said. She said it was someone who plays the violin. Then it could be one of us, I almost shrieked. Melody nodded vigorously with a big grin. Then she stopped. But there were lots of other girls who played the violin. I started to count Emma Richards, Sophie Williams, Charlotte Fitzgerald, and then Melody and me. That was 5 girls. Which one of us did he like? Melody and I became spies. We watched Teddy talk to every girl and studied him. Every time he walked into a room, we noted what he did, what he said, and who he spoke to. Melody wrote everything in her notebook. Today, Teddy talked to Emma 3 times, Charlotte 5 times, you 4 times, me 6. Melody repeated. He picked up Charlotte's pencil. He held the door for you. He let me cut in front of him in the lunch line. What about Sophie? I asked. He never talks to Sophie, Melody said, or even looks at her. It's definitely not her. By Friday, Melody had filled her notebook. She came over to my house for dinner, and then we went over our Teddy notes. We had wonton soup, white silky dumplings swimming in bamboo-colored broth, stir-fried green cabbage, white rice, sticky red spare ribs for dinner. I love spare ribs, I said as Mom cleared the plates after the table. I almost didn't make these tonight. We were going to get leftovers, Mom said. You're lucky. We're supposed to be lucky, Melody told me as we went upstairs to my room. We were both born in the year of the tiger, and tigers and dogs are friends. So, the year of the dog is the lucky year for us. Do you think it'll be so lucky that Teddy Jackson likes one of us? I asked as we studied the notebook. It's either you or Charlotte, Melody said. He smiles at both of you equally. He talked to her 3 more times than he did you, but he did sit next to you in art class. I thought about Charlotte. She had curly brown hair like a poodle and a freckled nose. She played the violin better than I did. Maybe it's her, I said. But in art class, Teddy said his favorite color was black, Melody said, and you had black hair. Maybe it was me. A warm feeling started to bubble up in me. Melody and I colored in the heart in her notebook. Teddy likes you, Melody sang. You're so lucky. Can I be a bridesmaid? Okay, I said. We drew pictures of the wedding dress, the bridesmaids' dresses, and the cake. That whole weekend, Melody called me Mrs. Jackson. It was funny. Once Mom answered the phone and said, "Sorry, you have the wrong number," and hung up on her. I had to call her back. Maybe Teddy will ask me to go out with them, I said to Melody. Maybe he'll ask me to eat lunch with them. Maybe, Melody said. Teddy and I could do a science project together. But we were going to do a science fair project together, Melody said suddenly. She didn't sound so happy anymore. Well, all 3 of us can do it together, right? I said. Maybe, Melody said again. Then I remembered that Melody liked Teddy too. Maybe she felt bad because Teddy liked me and not her. Maybe she felt unlucky. I didn't realize that my good luck would be her bad luck. I didn't know what to do. If Teddy became my boyfriend, what would I do? Would Melody be mad at me? Would we no longer be almost twins? I thought that maybe I shouldn't go out with Teddy, but he was so cute. The next day at school, I met Melody on the playground. Is Teddy here yet? I asked. Melody shrugged. I don't know. For the first time since we met, Melody and I didn't know what to say to each other. Melody kicked small stones in the dirt, and I watched them roll. Becky came up running to us. Hey, did you hear? Becky said. Teddy Jackson has a girlfriend. He does? Melody and I said together. Yes, Becky. He and Sophie Williams are going out. He told her he liked her yesterday at the soccer game. Look. Melody and I looked at where Becky was pointing. We saw the back of Teddy and Sophie's head like 2 dandelions in the grass. They were holding hands. Melody and I looked at each other and smiled. Chapter 13, the book contest. My 2 favorite classes at school were library class and art class. At the library, we were allowed to borrow 3 books at a time. Miss McCurdy would read to us. I loved books. I read every Betsy book in the library. Then I read all the books by the author Ruth Crew. Her books were all about magic and witches. They were very exciting. I loved art class too. Mr. Valent taught us how to mix colors. My favorite color was red, but you can't mix red. You can make orange from red and yellow, or purple from red and blue, but you could never mix two colors together to get red. We also got to make pictures on scratchboard. Instead of drawing black lines on white sheet of paper, you scratched away the black surface with a special pen. I did a drawing with sunflowers against the moon. One day, Miss McCurdy came to our art class. It was funny to see her there because we usually only see her in the library. Hello, class, she said. Mr. Vignette and I are combining our classes for a special project. We are going to have all you write and illustrate your own books. Our own books? Could we do that? Could I do that? Miss McCurdy told us that there was a contest that we would be entering. It is called the Written and Illustrated by, the National Awards Contest for Students. For this contest, you entered the books that you wrote and drew yourself. If you won first place, they would publish your book just like the books in the library. Miss McCurdy would help us with the writing, and Mr. Vignette would help us with the drawing. But we had to think up our own ideas. All day long, I thought about the project. Becky said she was going to do her book about a unicorn. Melody said she might write a story about a singer. I heard some boys talk about how they were going to do their stories about pirates or wizards with swords. I couldn't decide what to do about mine. At home, I told everyone about the project. Do a book about a girl that can read minds, Lizzie said. Do something about panda bears, Kiki said. How about a cookbook, Mom said. Better make an eating book, Dad said. You're good at that. No, I said, those aren't good ideas. I need a good one so I can win the contest. Mom shook her head. It's not easy to win a contest. You have to work very hard. Yes, said Dad. Like how you practice the violin. Everything takes time and effort. So, I have to practice making a book every day? I asked. That doesn't make any sense. No, Mom said, but you'll have to work on your book a little bit every day if you want to be good, just like practicing an instrument. Did I ever tell you about Grandma and the paper piano? The paper piano. When I was a little girl, maybe a little bit younger than you, before Grandpa started his business, we were very poor. Our house was small and old with a cracked cement floor that was never clean. No matter how much Grandma swept and scrubbed it, the bathroom was broken down and rotten. Green mold grew underneath the sink, and when it rained, worms would come through the walls. Grandma didn't like being poor. Before she married Grandpa, she had been a fine lady. Now, we were a poor family of a medical student. Grandpa knew it was only temporary. Only Grandpa became established. We would live in a nice house when I grow up to be a fine lady just like she had been. So while we were waiting for Grandpa to get established, we wanted to learn all the things fine ladies knew. One of those things was how to play the piano. Grandma looked all over for a good piano teacher that we could afford. Finally, she found one. He was a young man who lived over a mile away. Since we were too poor to buy a piano, he said that I could come to his house and practice every day after he was done giving lessons. Every day I walked the long way to his house. He lived in a grand house. I used to think that I was probably just like the house Elvis Presley would live in because it was an American-style house. Outside the house was a garden with rainbow flowers. There was exotic flowers in the garden, red and yellow roses with their vivid petals spilling over each other, marigolds looking like bursts of orange sunrises, and brilliant violet pink petunias. The house itself had 2 floors. I never got to see what the upstairs Never got to see what was upstairs, but downstairs was so magnificent. The floor was smooth and glossy wood, polished like a piece of golden amber. There were curly carved tea chest furniture, shiny chestnut-colored striped curtains, and ivory glass vases with blue flowers painted on them. On the porcelain cover was a gold box. An Englishwoman smiled at me. She wore a big pink dress, skirt puffing like an upside-down peony. She always seemed to be inviting me to open the box, but I never dared. The painting of wealthy ancestors were watching. Their stern gazes forbid me to touch any of their riches. My piano teacher had a fascinating house, but the walk to his house was long and dull. By the time I got there, my legs ached as if they had been beaten with bamboo stalks. I always tried to get out of the house. I always tried to get out of going to his house. It's too hot, I would say. It's too rainy. No matter what I said, Grandma still would make me go practice. Every day she marched me out of the house until finally one day she grew tired of hearing me complain. Okay, she said, you don't have to go, but you still have to practice. I was confused. If I didn't have to go, how would I practice? How could I practice without a piano? But Grandma calmly took a big sheet of white paper. She cut it and measured and colored it in. It was only after she had filled in the black rectangles that I recognized what she had made. I was drawing a piano keyboard. Grandma put the paper piano and my music on the table in front of me and said, "Here, you can practice on this." I played my scales, my exercises, my solo. Every time I touched the paper keys, my grandma would sing a note. So no matter what, I practiced the piano every day. Sometimes I practiced on a real piano, sometimes I practiced on the paper piano. It was a long time before we got a piano of our own, but when we did, I was able to play so well that they invited me to play in the school orchestra. Later, I played a solo on a big concert. When I was done, everyone stood up and clapped. Grandma was so happy that she cried when Mom finished. "So if I won a book contest, will you cry?" I asked. "Yes," she said, very hard. "We'll all cry," Dad said. "We'll buy a box of Kleenex just for the occasion." Chapter 14. Trying to discover. Besides the book project, the other exciting thing going on in school was the science fair. Since Teddy Jackson wasn't going to be my boyfriend, Melly and I were partners, just like we planned. I couldn't wait for the science fair. I thought maybe it could have helped me find myself. If science could answer questions about the weather and nature, it had to be able to help me answer what was going to happen when I grew up. Becky and Charlotte were doing a project on constellations. I said to Melody, and Teddy and Sophie are making a volcano. What are you going to do? I don't know, she said, but let's do something that'll win the blue ribbon. I've never won one before. Me either, I said. We'd have to be really lucky to win a blue ribbon, though. But we're supposed to be lucky this year, Melody said. We should be able to get it. Mom overheard us. The science fair isn't about luck, she told us. It's about science. Discovery through using your senses. Sight, smell, sound, touch, taste. Taste, I said. Let's do a project about ice cream. I can discover ice cream. That's not science, Melody said. That's dessert. Mom tried to help us. She said, you should do an experiment. Something you don't know the answer to before you begin, she said. Like what? I asked. Mom knew about these things before. She used to be a plant scientist before she married Dad. A bonetist, she said. Well, Mom said, a famous scientist once had her plants listen to all different kinds of music to see if they would affect their growth. She put a plant in a room. She played classical music for 24 hours a day. In another room, she played rock music. Did it make a difference, Melody said. Yes, it did, Mom told us. The plant that listened to classical music grew more than one that listened to rock music. That's funny, I said. Plants don't like rock music. Melody said. Maybe we should do something like that. I don't want to have to play music all the time. I said, I'll never get to sleep. Maybe we can do something else, like using different colored lights or water, Melody said. I know, I said. We could water the plants with different things. We'll give one orange juice, another soda, one milk, and we'll see which one they like better. Melody laughed. Maybe we should feed one ice cream too. So that weekend we planted 4 pea plant seeds. We watered one with orange juice, one with milk, one ginger ale, and one with plain water. Mom called that one our control. We compared to the others to it. The plants grew very well. The milk plant had one shriveled stem and smelled funny. The orange plant was just a pot of dirt. The water plant was small. In fact, the only plant that looked good was the plant we fed ginger ale. It was strong green and vining climbing up the stick. Plants like soda, Melody announced. We should tell the world. Everyone should water their plants with soda from now on. People could hose their lawns with ginger ale. Maybe Melody and I made big posters for the science fair. We made charts of one of each plant and wrote a report. The report was 4 pages long. I drew a leaf border on every page. We were very proud. This is our lucky year, Melody told me. We're definitely going to be blue ribbon. After the science fair hears about our project, we'll be famous. We'll maybe make the newspaper or on the TV. I was excited too. Not only Melody and I made an important scientific discovery, I might have discovered my talent. Of course, I could be a scientist. I could be like Albert Einstein, but I would comb my hair. Do you think a pea from soda plant will taste like ginger ale? Melody asked. She looked at the plant. It didn't look like any of the peas were growing. Maybe it'll be a pea pod by the science fair, I said hopefully.
Chapter 15, the science fair. The science fair was on Saturday. It didn't seem fair that we had to go to school on Saturday, but our teacher said it was the only way everyone could see all the projects. I was glad everyone was going to see our project. I couldn't wait until they heard what we discovered. Melody and I taped our posters on the wall. Our largest poster said, "Feed your plant, soda for optimal growth." I had drawn a picture of a pea plant and a bottle of ginger ale next to it. We hung that one right in the middle. We put our plants on the table with a carton of milk, a bottle of soda, a cup of orange juice, and a watering can. The plants were very small and scrawny. They didn't look anything like our drawing. Becky and Charlotte came over to our table. While we were trying to make our plants look better by drawing pictures on the pots, the pictures didn't help. Those plants didn't look that good, Charlotte said. Did you really water one with soda? Yes, Melody said. And we made scientific discovery. This our lucky year. Becky and Charlotte looked puzzled, so I explained the idea to them. Melody and I were born in the year of the tiger, I told them, so the year of the dog is really lucky for us. We'll probably win the blue ribbon. But I'm the same age as you, Becky said, so I was born in the year of the tiger too. So that means I'm just as lucky as you are. Maybe we'll win the blue ribbon. Melody and I looked at each other. We hadn't thought of that. How could all of us be lucky when there's only one blue ribbon? We're luckier because it's the Chinese year of the dog, Melody said, and Grace and I are Chinese. I could see Becky didn't agree, but Miss Maloney, Melody's teacher, came into the room and told everyone to go stand by their projects. We're ready to start judging the science fair, Miss Malone said, and this year we are all especially lucky. My good friend, Mr. McNeely, is going to be our guest judge. He is a scientist. He works at NASA. Lucky, said Melody, nudged me. See, with him here, we'll definitely get the blue ribbon. But he's from NASA, I whispered to Melody. That's like the space shuttle. He's probably an astronaut. He won't know about plants. Astronauts are scientists, she whispered back, and scientists know about science. We're going to win, I know it. We waited a long time for Mr. McNeely to come to our project. When he didn't, he looked surprised. Well, this is an interesting project, he said. He picked up our report and started reading it. We nudged each other. Here was our good luck. However, he said, I'm not sure your results substantiate your claim. Were your plants in the controlled environment? I looked at Melody. Her grin had completely disappeared. Our water plants is the controlled, I told him, remembering what my mom had told me. I felt very smart. No, I meant did you give each plant the same amount of liquid, and did they each have the same sun exposure, he said. Well, there wasn't enough room in the window for the watered plant, so I put the one on the table in the other room, I said, suddenly not feeling very smart. I might have given less light, and we didn't measure how much we gave them. Mr. McNeely said, frowning. Then I'm afraid your scientific method was seriously flawed. Melanie and I looked at each other. We didn't feel so lucky anymore. To get true results, you should do this project over again, at least at 10 plants for each liquid in the controlled environment. He continued, and then you should do a chlorophyll test. When he left, Melanie and I were very quiet. I didn't think he liked it, Melody said. He did say it was interesting, I said. But I really thought he had discovered something, Melody said. She sounded glum. He thought it was a terrible project. He didn't say it was terrible, I said. He said we were seriously flawed, Melody said. The scientists talked for horrible. We sat down at our table depressed. The science fair that had been so colorful and thrilling an hour ago was now gray and dull. I didn't know scientists had to do all that stuff, I said. Maybe I didn't want to be a scientist after all. It looked like I didn't have any science talent. Did you know that he was talking about? No, Melody said. We both laughed. An hour later, Melody came back into the room. We watched her hand Charlotte and Becky the blue ribbon, and then their pictures were taken for the school newspaper. I guess Charlotte and Becky have more luck than we do after all, Melody said, even though they're not Chinese. Maybe because Becky has a dog, I said. Dogs are probably better friends with other dogs, and then they are with tigers. Yeah, Melody said, Scruffy probably put it in a good word for them. Or maybe they just had a better project, I said. Maybe, Melody said, but I bet it was Scruffy. Chapter 16, Dreaming of Dorothy. We knew the end of school year was coming when Miss Malone announced that there was sign-ups for the school play. This year, she told our grade, we are going to put on a musical play, The Wizard of Oz. You can choose to be in the orchestra or choir, or you can try out for one of the parts. The Wizard of Oz. I love that movie and the book. Right away, I knew I was going to try out for Dorothy. Since it looked like I wasn't going to be a scientist when I grew up, I wouldn't mind being a rich movie star. This could be my chance to see if I was talent as an actress. Melody and I looked at the sign-up sheet. I'm signing up for the orchestra, Melody told me. You're not going to try out for Dorothy, I said. I am. I'm not going to sing in front of all these people, Melody said, looking at the list. Besides, everyone wants Dorothy. That was true. The list of Dorothy was very long. Almost all the girls in our grade had signed up. I made the list even longer. That whole week I practiced being Dorothy. In class, I drew pictures of Dorothy in her checkered dress, and at home, I drew Dorothy's ruby shoes while I sang Somewhere Over the Rainbow. I practiced singing every day after school, after dinner, in the bathroom, and before bed. Why can't you sing somewhere else? Lizzie groaned. Anywhere but here. I wasn't the only one singing, though. One day at the audition, it seemed like every girl was singing. You could hear Somewhere Over the Rainbow on the bus, in the girls' bathroom, and on the playground. I'm going to play On the Swings, Melody said, covering her ears. I'm sick of that song. I kept singing with the other girls. We were all crowded together like a flock of excited crows. Even while we sang, all of us were wondering the same thing. Who would get the part? Who was going to be Dorothy? The thought was thrilling and delicious at the same time. Do you think I could be Dorothy? I asked. Becky looked at me in shock. You can't be Dorothy, she said. Dorothy's not Chinese. Suddenly, the world went silent. Like a melting icicle, my dream of being Dorothy fell and shattered on the ground. I felt like a dirty puddle of rainwater. All of the girls continued to sing, but I didn't hear them. Becky was right. Dorothy wasn't Chinese. I was so dumb. How could I have even thought about being Dorothy? I've never have chosen. It was so stupid even to try. When Miss Malone called my name at the audition, I shook my head. Are you sure? She asked. I nodded. Miss Malone called on the next girl. The next day, a list was posted with all the parts. I was a munchkin. Emily and Richards was Dorothy. Emily had brown hair that curled at the ends and blue eyes. When she wore a blue checkered dress, she looked just like Dorothy. How come Chinese people are never important? I asked Melody. What do you mean? She said. We're important. No, we're not, I said. You never see a Chinese girl in the movies or in a play or in a book. No one Chinese is important. There are Chinese movie stars, Melody said, and the women that does the news in Chinese. Not a lot, though, I said. And there are none in the books. Whenever you do a school play, it's always from books. None of the characters are Chinese. When we did Cinderella, Peter Pan, and Alice in Wonderland, nobody in the book is Chinese. There must be, Melody said. Just because the school hasn't done a play about a Chinese person, that doesn't mean they aren't any. I doubt it, she said, but there aren't any. Melody and I went to the library and asked for a Chinese book. We looked at the book, The Five Chinese Brothers. See, Melody said, Chinese people. Those aren't real Chinese people, though, I said. Your brother doesn't have a ponytail. I'm not supposed to be real, Melody said. Who can swallow the ocean like they do in the book? But I wanted a real Chinese person, I complained. One with people like Chinese Americans. You're just gonna be picky, Melody said. Go write your own then. Okay. Suddenly I remembered the book writing contest. I will. Chapter 17, a real Chinese person book. Making a book was a lot harder than saying I would make one. When I told Miss McCarty that I wanted to make a book with a Chinese American person in it, she was very excited. That's a wonderful idea, she told me. Why don't you write it about yourself? You're Chinese American, and if you write your own experiences, your book is sure to be very unique. Miss McCurdy said over and over that she wanted to make books with unique and original ideas. She always tried to make us write stories from our lives. Write what you know, she kept saying, but most of us didn't seem to know much because we weren't doing very original ideas. Charlotte wrote a story that sounded a lot like Cinderella, except one of the two stepsisters there was only one. Becky's story was a lot like a unicorn movie we watched. Melanie was doing an original idea, though. Her book was about flowers that talk to each other. She got the idea from the science project. She said since she learned plants taste like people, she'd write a story about them talking like people too. But even when the original idea, I still didn't know what to write about. I knew I wanted it to be about a Chinese person, and Miss McCurdy wanted me to write about my life. But I couldn't think of a part in my life to write about. There was just nothing exciting in my life. Maybe that was why there is no real Chinese people in books. We are all boring lives. I watched the rest of the class write their stories. I draw little pictures of dogs reading books. My mind was like an empty paper balloon. Miss McCurdy stopped at my desk. Writer's block, she asked. What's writer's block, I asked. That's when a writer can't think of what to write. When you can't think of any words to write, she told me. I nodded my head hard. I definitely was having writer's block. What's the cure for it, I asked. You just have to relax, not try so hard, Miss McCurdy said, and wait. Well, that was disappointing. Isn't there something I could do to make it disappear sooner, I asked. Don't worry, Miss McCurdy told me. You'll find an idea. It'll come to you. But I worried. Finding a book idea was like finding myself. I wasn't having much luck either. Chapter 18, the school play. At the same time as the book project, we were all working on The Wizard of Oz. There were rehearsals every week. Since I was only a munchkin, I thought rehearsals were pretty boring. I should have signed up for the orchestra like you, I told Melody. Who ever heard of a Chinese munchkin? That's why I signed up for the orchestra, Melody said. Besides, no one will see you probably. That's true, I said, thinking about all the kids that were munchkins on stage. And all we did was stand around and sing songs. But one day, Miss Malone said, "You're right about that. Right before the song, we need a munchkin to give Dorothy a thank you card for killing the Wicked Witch. Grace, you'll have to do it." Me? But then everyone would see me. What if I handed Dorothy a gift and everyone in the audience whispered to each other, "A Chinese munchkin? There's no such thing as a Chinese munchkin." I tried to say something, but Miss Malone had hurried onto the Cowardly Lion. That day, when I got home from school, Mom asked me what was wrong. "Uh-oh," Mom said. "You have a grumpy face. What's wrong today?" "Miss Malone made me the munchkin that gives Dorothy the gift," I said. "Isn't that good?" Mom asked. "Now you have a part that's more special." "No," I told her. "It's horrible. It's so stupid that she picked me." "Why is it stupid?" I asked. "I would think you'd be proud." "Now everyone will see me," I said. "Before, no one would notice me, but now I'll stick out. People will say, 'Grace is a munchkin,' and then they'll laugh at me. Everyone is going to laugh at me." Mom said. "You sound like I did before my first day of school. Did I ever tell you about that?" Mom's first day of school. The night before my first day of school, my mother told me that Amma, my grandmother, was going to bring me. Now remember, Amma grew up during a time when women bound their feet to make them smaller. Binding their feet did make them smaller, but ooh, how painful it was to walk on them. So because it was so difficult for Amma to walk, it was decided that Amma would walk me to school and wait outside for me all day. It was time to bring me back so she wouldn't have to make an extra trip. Now, was I grateful for Amma's sacrifice? No, I was embarrassed. What would my classmates think of me when my grandma walked me to school and sat all day in the schoolyard waiting for me? They would think I probably was a baby who needed someone nearby all the time. I pleaded and begged my parents to let me go alone or someone else bring me to school, but they refused. The next day, I dreaded going to school. I usually liked walking with Amma, unlike walking with my mother and father, whose large steps made me hop like a rabbit. Amma always walked slowly, deliberately, picking her steps like the way you choose peaches at the market. But today I hate walking with Amma. I dragged my feet as if they were stuck to the ground with honey. I hoped that by getting to school late, no one would see Amma walking with me. On the way, we met up with another student, a round-faced boy named J, who was walking with his grandma as well. He scowled at me with a fierce anger, and I started to feel that school was going to be a very unhappy and unfriendly place. The bell was ringing when I finally reached school. So far, my plan was working. I hoped that no one noticed Amma as I left her outside. But my relief was short-lived because as soon as my classmates sat down at their seats, Jung-ho Jae made a noise like a tea kettle. "Look out the window," he laughed and pointed. I was horrified. Was this boy pointing at Amma and laughing at her? I joined my classmates at the window and started laughing too. Outside the schoolyard, a whole row of grandmothers. They sat there like a line of birds on a telephone line, gossiping and sharing tea. Everyone's grandma was out there, and I didn't need to feel embarrassed about Amma waiting for me the whole day. Mom finished because everyone else's grandmas was doing the same thing. "But it's not the same with the play," I said. "Isn't it though?" Mom asked. "You're worried about your part. You aren't seeing that there's nothing to worry about." "Maybe," I said. I did feel better. Chapter 19, The Wizard of Oz. On the night of the school play, the sky was as quiet as a feather falling. It was still and silent without movement from the wind or snow. I couldn't understand it at all. How could it be so calm when the play was about to happen? Backstage, everyone was running around, getting dressed and putting makeup on. Tin cans were being polished, straw was taped on, and green backdrops were whizzing around. Kathy Small, who played Glinda, had gotten her hair permed just for the occasion. I didn't have much to do. I already put on my flowered munchkin apron and bonnet. Even though I didn't look like a munchkin, the costume was perfect. Most of the munchkins had used old clothes belonging to their parents or grandparents to make their costumes, but my parents didn't have anything that looked like that. So my mom and I went to the store. I picked out a leaf green material with delicate rosebuds scattered on it. It was called calico, which was what the American pioneer girls wore, and it was exactly right for a munchkin. I also made my gift that was supposed to hand to Dorothy. It was a shoebox colored in sapphire blue wrapping paper and a big red bow. It was completely empty. I could toss it in the air like a balloon, but that didn't matter because Dorothy never ended up opening it, which I didn't think was right. Even if I were given a gift for a munchkin, I'd open it right away. Melody and I watched everyone rush around. It was as if they were a hurricane happening all around us. This is why I didn't try out to be Dorothy, Melody said. Too stressful. True, I said, but it's exciting too. When you're one of us without an important role, it's pretty boring. We've got an important role, Melody said. You're the gift-giving munchkin. Yeah, I'm given an empty box, I said. Great present. Actually, Danny Dog has the biggest role of them all of us. Melody laughed. Danny Dog was Melody's stuffed animal. He was going to be Toto. Becky had volunteered Scruffy, but Miss Malone had said a real dog was too unreliable. So Melody brought her fuzzy chocolate-covered Danny Dog. Most of the time, Danny Dog was carried in Dorothy's basket, and he really didn't get to do much either. Though one of the boys did bark off stage to give him a voice. Melody was all dressed in black. All the orchestra was dressed in black so they didn't be too obvious. Melody wanted to wear black makeup too, but Miss Malone said it wouldn't be necessary. Grace, Melody, Miss Malone said, get to your places. Curtains will go up in 10 minutes. Melody waved goodbye as she sat in the orchestra pit, which was the area in front of the stage. I joined the other munchkins and thought about the play. First, Emma would be the blue checkered Dorothy costume, which was made from a tablecloth, talking to Toto, Danny Dog, and then the curtains would open and the show Oz. Then the munchkins would come and sing a song, and I would give the gift. I knew my mom was right, and probably everyone was too busy thinking about their own parts to wonder why the Chinese munchkin, but I was still worried. Would they laugh and whisper? I heard clapping from the audience. It was loud. That meant they were probably a lot of people. I tried to smooth out the wrinkled wrapping paper on my gift. Miss Malone beckoned us, and all the munchkins filed through the door and went on stage. Never before did the stage feel so big. I was glad there were other munchkins in front of me and in the back of me. Emma looked so much like Dorothy, with her braided hair and blue and white dress, that I forgot for a second that I was in a play. I thought I was watching her on TV. The orchestra played, the munchkins began to sing. As soon as the song was over, it would be time for me. I opened and closed my mouth, but no words came out. I just looked at the space between Dorothy and me. How many steps would it be? 10? 14? Suddenly, one of the munchkins nudged me. Grace! The munchkin hissed. Go! It was time. I walked forward. There was a bright spotlight on me. I tried to look into the audience, but I couldn't see anyone. I didn't hear anything except for my own breathing. With every step, I got closer to Emma, and she smiled at me. A play smile full of teeth, one for the audience. As she took the gift, I felt like giving her a 10-pound rice sack. I curtsied like we had practiced. As I looked at my shoes, I heard thunder. It was applause for me. No one laughed or whispered about a Chinese munchkin at all. I smiled into the bright light towards the audience, and I headed back to the rest of the munchkins. The rest of the play floated like a song bubble. Once I looked down at the orchestra pit and saw Melody making faces at me. I didn't dare make one back at her, but I couldn't help laughing. I pulled my bonnet over my face so no one could see. After Dorothy clicked her heels 3 times and the play was over, everyone lined up for a bow. The audience gave us a standing ovation. That meant we must have been really good. I bet it was the best gift-giving Chinese munchkin ever. Chapter 20. Digging up a book idea. When the play was over, everyone was concentrating on the book project. Almost everyone had finished writing his or her stories. I haven't even thought of a good idea. I still had writer's block. I knew Miss McCurdy had said an idea would come to me, but I didn't want to get a bad grade on a project because of writer's block. But I couldn't think of anything unique about me. I thought about writing about the science fair, like Melody said. But since we didn't discover anything, it didn't seem like it was a good idea. I thought about writing about Albert's red egg party, but that was about Albert, not me. When I got home from school that day, I found my mom in the backyard. Spring was here. Snow had melted away for good, and had left everything smelling like a wet towel. The leaves on the trees were just starting to peek out. Nothing like small emerald ornaments hanging from branches and my shoes coated with mud, as if they had been dipped in chocolate. It was gardening time. Uh-oh, Mom said. Grumpy face again. Did something go wrong at school? I have writer's block, I told her. I can't think of an idea for my book project. Everyone else is almost done writing their stories. I haven't even started. Mom said. Maybe if you help me dig, it'll loosen up your writer's block and give you an idea. That won't give me an idea, I laughed. You just want me to help you. Still, I put on my blue gardening overalls and helped Mom dig away. Mom always needed help with her garden. It was because she grew special Chinese vegetables. It took a lot of time. We would dig and then plant the seeds that looked like medicine pills. After that, we would water the whole garden and hose so much that it looked as if there had been flood. While we were digging, Mom tried to help me come up with ideas. Why don't you write about the school play, she suggested, or the Chinese New Year? I kept shaking my head. None of those ideas seemed right. I threw the ideas away like we threw the dirt from our shovels. Soon we both tried and decided to take a rest. We were both tired and tried to take a rest. I didn't know if I'm more tired from digging dirt or digging up an idea for you. Mom said digging is hard work. If you planted flowers instead of Chinese vegetables, I told her, we wouldn't have to work so hard. But then you wouldn't eat your favorite soup, Mom told me. Do you remember the first time I planted Chinese vegetables? I remembered. Mom's whole garden had been full of weird-looking vegetables. They were yellow and bumpy and lumpy. Some of them looked like warty frogs, and some looked like purple sausages. I couldn't understand why she wanted to grow them, but when she made soup out of them, I changed my mind. The soup was so good. Eating it was like swallowing a nice warm hug after being cold. You thought they were ugly vegetables, Mom laughed. They still are ugly, I told her, but they taste delicious. Yummy, ugly vegetables. Suddenly it hit me. Here was an idea. Here was a good idea for me, or for my book. I could write about ugly vegetables and me. You were right, I told Mom. Digging cured my writer's block. Good, she said. Now just imagine what will happen when you help me water. Chapter 21. Making a book. Now that I had a book idea, I had to write the story. This wasn't easy. It took me all night to write the story, and that was just the first time. Mom read it and Mom made me change things, and Dad read it and made me change things. Lissy read it and told me to change everything, but I didn't listen to her. Finally, I read it to Kiki and Melody, and they said it was perfect. So I brought it to school. Miss McCurdy read it and liked it very much, but she made me change things too. So I had to write my story over 3 times. Then I had to type it all out. Mom helped me, but it still took a long time. After the story was done, I drew and painted picture after picture. It was like painting and drawing. I used all my favorite colors like rose, violet, and vermilion red. I made the vegetables look even uglier than they were in real life. And I made myself look prettier by making my eyelashes longer and always wearing long, beautiful dresses. I looked like a princess. But it was easy to make mistakes. Sometimes I would have to paint the picture 2 or 3 times before it was perfect. I never knew it was so hard to make a book. I even ran out of paint. Dad went and bought me some new ones. The man at the store said these paints were not for beginners, I told him. Dad told me, and I told him, my daughter is not a beginner. I pasted the pictures and my story onto the pages. Miss McCurdy and Mr. Violet helped me bind the book. I was so proud. If I won the contest, I couldn't imagine what they would do to it to make it more like a real book. Before we sent the book to the contest, Miss McCurdy showed each book to the class. I was embarrassed when she showed mine. I probably shouldn't have tried to make myself look prettier. It was kind of silly to garden in a long dress. I hoped they let me change that if they ever printed as a real book. Miss McCurdy put all the books on the library special shelf she saved for us. She put them alphabetically by author, just like they did in the real books. Mine was right next to Melodies. Miss McCurdy said we wouldn't hear from the contest until next year. She warned all of us not to hope too hard about winning the contest. She said it was just a contest that everyone in the whole country would be entering, so it would be difficult to win. But she also said she would be proud of our books because they were all good and deserved to win a prize. Next year was a long time to wait, I thought. But if they had to read the books to everyone in the whole country, I guess it made sense. Miss McCurdy gave us our grades. I got an A+. Melody came over to my house after school. She got an A on her book, too. Good job, Mom said, when we told her the news. I know you both worked very hard on your project. Mom sliced some red bean paste candy for us to snack on as a reward. The mahogany-colored candy was soft and sweet and coated our mouths. Did Miss McCurdy say anything about your books besides your grade? Mom asked. Mine was beautiful, I said, nodding my head. Mine was wonderfully unique, Melly said. Whose book was the best? Whose book did you like the best, Mom said. Mom asked. Sam Mercer's, Melody said, giving me a nudge. Now that Teddy had a girlfriend, we both liked Sam. His book was all about a knight who killed people. That doesn't sound like a nice book, Mom said. No, we said in unison. It was great. Chapter 22. No more school. After the book project was over, the days disappeared like dumplings on a plate. The sun shone with the yellows of summer, and the wind blew with the breeze that felt like it would come from an oven. Almost before I knew it, the last bell was ringing, and Melody and I were running to my house to celebrate the end of the school year. Mom took out some crumbly almond cookies for us. Melody loved eating at my house. We had lots of food that was not nutritious. What is your family doing this summer, Mom asked Melody. We're going to TAC camp again, she told us, and then we're visiting my Aunt Alice in New Jersey. What's TAC camp, I asked. Oh, it's camp for Taiwanese Americans. We all get together and do things, she said. We go every summer. We spend a week there, and then we go see my aunt the next week. That sounds boring, I said. No, it's fun, Melody says. We sing songs and do art class and all the usual fun camp things, except everyone is Taiwanese. Maybe you should come. But I can't speak Taiwanese like you, I said. That's okay, Melody said. Everyone knows English. Some of them don't even know how to speak Taiwanese either. Anyway, I could help you. You should come too. It would be fun. Maybe she will, Mom said. I think it would be good for Pacey to make more Taiwanese friends. I'm going to call my mother about this camp. My mother found out more about the TAC camp. Melody's mother explained to her that it was a Taiwanese American convention, which was kind of like a camp, but it was for the whole family, not just kids. The adults would make other Taiwanese American parents and listen to speeches and things. The kids would get together and do crafts and watch movies. Mom thought it sounded good, not just for me, but the whole family. So we all drove down to the convention. The first week of the convention was fun. Melody and I spent most of our time together. Sometimes we'd get bright colored popsicles and get shaped of rockets to eat them, turning our mouths as purple as pansies decorating the stairs we liked to sit on. Sometimes we drew ice cream colored chalk pictures of our dogs and hearts with other names and Sam Mercer's in them, or unicorns on the faded playground pavement. Once we held a stuffed animal wedding with Kiki and Benji. Danny dog married Sabrina, Benji's cat, and Butterscotch, my teddy, was the minister. It was a lovely wedding. Kiki's pony toys carried away the bride and groom. Lizzie spent all her time with the big girls dancing and shopping. But after the first week, Melody's family had to leave. They're going to see her Aunt Alice in New Jersey. I was sad she was leaving. It's not going to be any fun now, I told her. Well, I'd rather stay here with you, Melody told me. My Aunt Alice is strange. What do you mean, strange? I asked. Does she have purple hair? No, Melody said. She looks normal. But she believes in ghosts. Did I tell you about the last time I visited her? I sat on a ghost. What? I asked. How could you sit on a ghost? How Melody sat on a ghost. The last time we went to my Aunt Alice's, she invited us over for dinner. I think it was for Chinese New Year. I can't remember. Anyway, there were 2 chairs at the end of the table that were empty. Even though no one was sitting in the chairs, there were big plates of food there. I could smell the stir-fried noodles and the shiny roasted duck and the dragon red pork. They seemed to invite me over, so I sat down in an empty chair ready to eat. Aunt Alice rushed over like a typhoon and hurried me out of the chair. She told me those chairs were for ghosts of her parents. I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. She poured hot tea in 2 fancy cups and served them to the empty chairs. When she finished, she bowed with deep respect, her nose touching her knees. It made me think maybe there were ghosts there. Do you think they minded that I sat on them? I wonder if I sat on her father or her mother. But then again, maybe they weren't sitting there yet. I couldn't tell. I kept watching the chair cushions to see if they got wrinkled or anything when the ghost sat down or stood up, but not one gold thread of embroidery moved. My parents told me it was a way of honoring the dead. I was worried that the whole dinner was going to be for the ghosts, and we weren't going to eat anything. But my mother told me we would get to eat after the ghosts were done. Then I was worried because how would we know if the ghosts were done eating? I didn't see any food disappearing. We could be waiting a long time, but the food would be cold. Aunt Alice seemed to know. She served all the courses one by one to the ghosts. After the last course we served, she took the food back to the kitchen and reheated it, and then we got to eat. I sat next to one of the ghosts for the whole meal. At least I think I did. Maybe they moved around, Melody finished, but they were pretty nice as far as ghosts go. Do you know what that means? I said. You ate ghost leftovers. Melody said. They were delicious. Chapter 23. A Twinkie. Mom said it was good Melody was leaving early, that I should make new friends. That was the whole reason why we came to TAC camp. So she signed me up for an art class with kids my age. When I got to the room, there were 4 other girls there. They were all chattering like squirrels, so I went up to them. Hello, I said. One of the girls said something to me, but I didn't understand. I shook my head. I can't speak Chinese, I said. I wasn't speaking Chinese, the girl said to me, her eyeballs flying to her forehead. I was speaking Taiwanese. I can't speak Taiwanese either, I said. You can't speak Chinese or Taiwanese? The girl said, why not? I don't know what to say. My mom and dad spoke to each other in Taiwanese and Chinese at home, but they always spoke to us in English. Once, when a girl in my school asked me the same question, my teacher answered for me. Your parents are Italian, right? Said Miss Whitten. Had said to her, do you speak Italian? She shook her head no. Well then, Miss Whitten said, why should Grace have to speak Chinese? It's the same thing. You're both Americans, and you're in America, we speak English. I had been happy with that answer then, but now my tongue felt frozen to my mouth and I couldn't say anything. The Chinese girl looked at me as if I were a filthy cockroach crawling on the floor. Her fat face wrinkled in disgust. I don't know, I mumbled. I don't know. I know why. One girl rose, said, her nose arching towards the ceiling. It's because you're Americanized. My mother said she would never have let me become Americanized. She said that when you're Americanized, you don't have any culture. You're a Twinkie, another girl said. My brother said Chinese people who are Americanized are Twinkies, yellow on the outside and white on the inside. The girls crackled and jabbered to each other in Chinese like mockingbirds. I felt like a helpless fish frying in oil with the red-hot heat burning my face and stinging my eyes. I turned around so they wouldn't see me cry. More kids and teachers came in. I breathed my tears down and sat down. We sat at a small table and the teachers put paper and crayons in front of us. I sat as far away from those girls as possible. The teacher taught us a little bit about coloring. She asked us to draw something red, so I drew a piece of watermelon. Then we had to draw something blue, so I drew a bluebird. Then she had us draw something white, so I drew a unicorn. Then she asked us to draw something yellow. I couldn't think of anything yellow I wanted to draw. The teacher walked around the room and looked at everyone's drawings. She stopped and looked at my drawings. This is lovely, she said, looking at the picture of the bluebird. She showed the rest of the class. Look at this beautiful picture of the bluebird that Patsy did. All the students felt better. All of a sudden, I felt better. I didn't have to speak Chinese to be a good artist. My smile disappeared when I saw the other girls at the table scowling at me. The teacher kept walking around, and I heard her stop at the table and say, now this is nice and yellow. Is it a banana? The girls laughed. No, I heard them. It's a Twinkie. I pressed on the crayon so hard that it broke, the hot oil inside of me blistering and bursting. In my head, I wanted to shout, I never want to speak Chinese ever if it makes me mean like you. But I didn't say anything. When the class was over, I went back to the room and threw myself on the bed. And then I cried and cried. I hated those girls. They were so horrible. Kiki saw me crying and ran to get Mom. What's wrong, Mom asked me. Did something happen? I shook my head. I didn't want to tell anyone what those girls said, but I kept crying. Dad went and asked the art teacher if anything happened at class, but the teacher said I had been fine. She even said I did very good drawings. I stopped crying up and started hiccuping. Did she really say that? I asked. Maybe things weren't so bad. I probably would never have seen those girls ever again. I blew my nose and rubbed my eyes. Then I asked Mom, why did she want me to have more Chinese friends? Was someone mean to you in your class? Mom asked. What did they say to you? No, I shook my head. I still didn't want to tell anyone what happened. No one said anything. Mom sighed and sat next to me. I thought it would be good for you to have more friends from your own culture, Mom told me, so you can know people who are like you. Did I ever tell you about my first friend in America? Mom's first friend. When Dad and I first came to the United States, I was very lonely. Dad was in medical school and I was going to college. But when I have never lived away from my family before, I was used to having my 4 sisters and my brother, my parents, my grandparents, my uncles and aunties all around everywhere. In Taiwan, we used to all eat dinner together, laughing and talking, everyone bubbling like simmering soup. When I came to the United States, everything seemed quiet and cold. Usually I ate dinner all by myself because Dad was too busy. I would shiver on my way to school, the wind biting me the whole way. People would talk and laugh and walk by me as if I were an invisible ghost. I was scared to talk to them because my English was so bad. I didn't understand the TV or my teachers or anyone. They all spoke so fast and the words suddenly sounded like monkeys jabbering. I didn't know how to make friends with any of them. I was sad and lonely and homesick. I felt a thistle in the rose garden. Every day I would come home from class and cry and cry. One day I was crying like someone knocked on the door. "Are you okay?" someone called out in Chinese. I was so surprised that someone was talking in Chinese that I stopped crying and opened the door. At the door was a Chinese girl with a grin of a melon slice. Her name was Mai. She had been visiting our friend next door and had heard me crying. When she learned I was Chinese, she decided to come over. What a difference it made knowing Mai. We became best friends. I clung to her like a vine, and she supported me like a tree. She told me how she had been homesick too when she first came, but she had never wanted to go back. She introduced me to the American friends. She helped me with my English and my studies. She was never impatient with me, with my bad English or my fear of American things. She had them too. Slowly I started to feel like the United States wasn't so bad. I stopped thinking so much about all the things I missed and started thinking about all the things I could do. I made more friends, I ate pizza, I went to the movies. American became like home, and now it is. But that is why I wanted you to have friends from your culture, Mom told me, because it's easier when you know people who understand. But it's just because they're Chinese doesn't mean they're the same as me, I said. I didn't think they would understand me at all. That's true, Mom said. Because they are Chinese, they are more likely to understand. Look at you and Melody. Don't you think she understands? I nodded, but I wasn't convinced. It's not fair to Americans. I'm Chinese, too. And to Chinese people, I'm American, too. Which one am I supposed to be? Neither or both, Mom told me. I don't have to be more than one than the other. You're Chinese American. Or Taiwanese American, I complained. It's so confusing. Good thing you're so smart, Mom said. You can keep it from getting mixed up. Yeah, I said, but everyone's not as smart as I am. Chapter 24, New York City. Since it was summer, Mom and Dad planned for the family vacation after the conference. This time, we were going to go to New York City. I was always confused about New York City. Was the city named after the state, or was the state named after the city? Whenever we told people where we lived, we had to say upstate New York, not New York. If we only said New York, they thought we were from New York City. I didn't think that was fair. New York City was a lot smaller than the rest of the state. New York City meant Chinatown. That meant we could buy all the things we couldn't get in New Hartford. So my mom did all her grocery shopping. She took us to the Chinese grocery store and told us to pick whatever we wanted. The Chinese store was cramped and crowded and had a weird smell, kind of like the way your feet smell after you've walked in the rain. Lizzie said it was because of the dried mushrooms in the window. There were blue crabs in a basket by the stairs and boxes of sunshine yellow mangoes and sand-colored Chinese pears on the floor. We had to pick things that could keep for a long time, so Lizzie pulled out some canned lychees while I picked a bag of Chinese popsicles, and Kiki grabbed some Chinese New Year candy. When we brought the items to the cart, Mom told us to get more. Get 3 or 4 packs, Mom urged us. They will have to last you a whole year. By the time we finished picking out everything we wanted, we had 2 whole carts full of groceries. It took us a long time to check out, and Dad went to get the car while Mom paid. The owner of the grocery store came out and helped us put the groceries in the car. He bowed to Mom and thanked her for coming. He gave Kiki and Lizzie and me each a box of caramels for free. Mom said it was because we gave him such a good business. And we had. The whole car was full, and I had to sit on 6 cans of baby corn for the rest of the trip. After we went to the grocery store, Mom and Dad brought us to the Chinese bakery for a treat. Dad ordered 5 diamond-shaped pieces of 1,000-layer cake, 1 piece for each of us. It didn't really have 1,000 layers, but it was soft and sweet and very yummy. Can someone get a job eating cake, like a professional cake eater, I asked. It was August, and already I still haven't found myself. No, Mom laughed. Anyway, would you get tired of eating cake all the time? I wouldn't, Lizzie said. I can eat cake every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The whole thing, chop, chop, chop. You sound just like your uncle, Mom said. He loves cake. Did I ever tell you about your uncle and the cake? Uncle Shin and the special cake. Well, when we were kids, we weren't very rich, so we rarely got anything special. Sometimes Grandma gave us little candies or cookies, but never anything much better than that. However, one day a rich auntie came to visit us. She brought us a box of wrapped with silky bow. Do you know what it's in it? There's cake inside. We had never been lucky enough to have a whole cake before. It was frosted white rectangle with sugary pink flowers and pastel green leaves. Every inch of cake held a promise and a sweet delight. My sisters and my brother and I stared at the big eyes and licked our lips. We wanted to eat it so badly. The worst was my brother Shin, who knew, Uncle Shin. He loved to eat and he usually got the best of everything. He was the only boy in the family, so Grandma spoiled him. That's mine, he growled like a starving wolf, his eyes devouring the cake. He wanted that whole cake for himself. While my auntie was talking to Grandma took the cake into the kitchen. She cut it into 8 equal slices, 1 slice for each of us. I couldn't wait. We crowded around her and inspected each slice to make sure they were all the same size. Uncle Shin kept circling as if he was hunting a tiger. I want all the cake, he kept hissing. I want all the cake. Give me all of it. But just as Grandma finished slicing, Auntie called out to say she was leaving. We all had to go and say goodbye. We left the cake on the table and bowed goodbye to Auntie in front of the house. All of us said goodbye and waved except for Shin. He had disappeared. When we went back to the kitchen, there was Shin. He was devouring the cake like a hungry pig, crumbs and frosting decorating his mouth and nose. He was such a greedy little boy. He was determined to have the whole cake to himself. But we had only left him with the cake for a minute, and he wasn't able to eat the entire thing. Do you know what he did instead? He spit on all the other pieces. It was so gross. He ruined everyone else's piece, so he could have it all, and he did. We watched him eat every piece, and what a spoiled boy he was. But that night he had the horrible stomachache, and no one felt sorry for him. I would have just eaten around the spit, Lizzie said. Ew, we all said together. Yuck. Chapter 25, Halloween at School. I couldn't believe the summer was over, but it was. The leaves turned as yellow as Chinese pear, and the air felt like it came from an open refrigerator. Too soon. It was time to go back to school. Lizzie took the big bus to junior high, and Kiki went with me to the bus stop. Kiki was in kindergarten now. A new teacher was Miss Pederisi. She was tall and had curly hair, short hair, the color of cinnamon. Melody was in my class, so was Sam Mercer. That made us happy. But Becky was in Ms. Wine's class across the hall. Mrs. Pederisi has been Lizzie's teacher too. She remembered that. One day, she said, "Oh, I taught your sister Beatrice." I hoped that she didn't think I'd be good at math like Lizzie was. Mrs. Pederisi was a teacher. If your birthday was on a school day, Miss Pederisi gave you a big lollipop. I was sad because my birthday was on a Saturday this year, so I wouldn't get a lollipop. But for Halloween, she let us draw a big picture of a laughing jack-o'-lantern, and she taped it on the window. Miss Pederisi also said we could have a costume contest for Halloween. That was exciting. She said we should all wear our costumes, and we would get some of the other teachers to judge who had the best costume. What should my costume be? I asked everyone. I spent the whole time drawing myself in different costumes. I drew myself as a silver fairy, a princess dressed in velvet, an amethyst butterfly, and a green-faced witch. But I wasn't sure if I wanted to be any of them. No one helped me come up with more ideas. Lizzie said I should go as a thing like her. That meant painting her face a pasty green, putting a shower cap, and wearing Dad's doctor gown. She always went as a thing. No one knows what you are when you go like that, I complained to her. That's why you should do it, Lizzie said. You'll be the only thing in your class. I wasn't convinced. Being a thing was not my idea of a good costume. Most people were buying their costumes from the store. We went too, but I didn't see anything I liked. I didn't like the masks that came with the costumes. They were hard plastic with cheap colors and fake smiles. And you just tied the mask around your head with a rubber band. That didn't look real. I realized that if I wanted a good costume, I'd have to make it myself. But how? And what would it be? I cut 2 eye holes in the sheet and go as a ghost? But that seemed boring. Besides, not only would my mom not like it if I cut holes in the sheets, but we would have any plain white sheets. We had ivory ones with printed coral red flowers, coffee-colored sheets with stripes, and a canary yellow ones with floating balloons, but no plain white ones. What kind of ghost would have flowers printed on her? I kept walking around. Finally, when Kiki said she was going to be the Wicked Witch from the West, I got an idea. I'd be a black cat. I could wear Lizzie's old black dance leotard, and I could make cat ears with tape and tape them on a headband. I could even draw whiskers on my face with Mom's makeup pencil. When I got home, I told Mom my idea. She agreed that it was a good one. She opened up Lizzie's old clothes drawer and found a black leotard. I tried it on. It fit. But we have to buy you new stockings, Mom said, holding up Lizzie's old ones. These have holes and runs in them. I couldn't wait for Halloween after that. I made Kiki and Lizzie promise that not to tell anyone what my costume was. I didn't even tell Melody. What are you going to be? I asked Melody. It's a surprise, she grinned. What are you going to be? I shook my head, and I kept my lips tightly closed. So it was so hard to keep a secret. I could feel it waiting to burst out of me like a popping balloon. It's Halloween, and Miss Pitterency let us change into our costumes. The girls went into the girls' bathroom, the boys went in the boys' room. I drew on my whiskers, colored my nose with a black makeup pencil, and wiggled into new stockings and leotards. But when I looked down at my legs, they were the wrong color. Bad luck. Mom had bought me navy blue stockings instead of black ones by mistake. I didn't know what to do. I could take the stockings off, then I'd be a black cat with pale legs, and I'd be cold. But now I was a black and blue cat. Who ever heard of a black and blue cat before? But without stockings, I probably couldn't even look like a costume. I'd look like a ballet student with cat ears, and I decided to leave the stockings on. If anyone asks, I just say, it was meant to be black and blue cat. It was fun seeing everyone in costumes. There were a lot of monsters and ghosts. I was glad I hadn't gone as a ghost. Sam Mercer was Santa Claus, and he had his beard from a notebook paper he had cut into shreds. Another boy was a robot made from a box covered in tin foil, but the funniest one was Melody. She had cut a hole in a laundry basket and put it around her waist. Then there were clothes filling the basket. I'm a basket of laundry, she told us. Everyone's desks were laid out for the party. Each desk there were cups of apple cider and an orange frosted cupcake with black and brown sprinkles on it, some candy corn, and an apple. Miss Penrose was playing some creepy music. Some other teachers were sitting at the big table, ready to judge our costumes. We paraded around before we sat down. When they were announced the winners, Melody won first prize. Miss Peterzinski gave her a blue ribbon and a huge lollipop with colored rainbows twisted into it. Sam Mercer got honorable mention and a bar of chocolate with a yellow ribbon. I didn't win anything. The judges must have noticed my blue leggings. Maybe if my leggings were black, I might have won something. On the bus ride home, Melody let me lick her lollipop. You're lucky, I told her. You won the blue ribbon, a lollipop, and you got to stand next to Sam. You're luckier too, Melody said. It's our lucky year, remember? You're the only one who won the ribbon, I said. You're the only lucky one. I looked out the window. I felt like one of the early falling leaves, brown, dried up, and turning into dust in the blustery wind. I'm not lucky, I told Melody. I'm not lucky at all. Chapter 26, A Prize. After Halloween, we took down the jack-o'-lantern picture and hung up the pilgrim and horns of plenty. I drew a big turkey with purple red feathers, and Peterzinski put it on the bulletin board next to the calendar. November, December, Melody counted the months. The year's almost over. I know, I said sadly, and I haven't found myself or my talent. I guess I'll have to wait until next year of the dog. But the next morning, while we were all sitting in the back seats, the loudspeaker crinkled. It was a surprise announcement. I would like to congratulate one of our students, Grace Lin, Mr. Hargraves, the principal announced through the loudspeaker. Everyone turned around and looked at me. What had I done? Grace's book, The Ugly Vegetables, had won the 4th place in the National Written and Illustrated Awards contest for students. This was a great honor, especially since she was chosen out of 20,000 entries. Grace will receive a $400 and a certificate for winning 4th place. I couldn't believe it. I felt like I had been tickled away from a nap. Melody was bouncing up and down in her seat. The whole class was clapping. I had forgotten about the contest over the summer, and now I won 4th place. Congratulations, Grace, Miss Peterzinski said. All of my friends gathered around me, congratulating me. I couldn't wait to go home to tell everyone. At home, Mom and Dad were just as excited as everyone. You said you'd cry if my book won, I reminded Mom. Oh, yes, she said. She hid her face in her hands and pretended to cry. Dad put his hands over his face and pretended to. Kiki and I laughed. Lizzie rolled her eyes. Can we stop now? She groaned. It's only 4th place. It didn't get published. But it won $400. Kiki said, You're rich. Suddenly, like the last piece of a puzzle fitting into place, I realized something. I was rich. And not only was I rich, I had won a prize. And I had talent as an author and illustrator, and finally knew what I could do when I grew up. I could make books. When I grew up, I could have a whole shelf of books written by me. I was lucky. Like a creamy chocolate in my mouth, a warm feeling melted through me. I smiled the biggest smile. I found myself, I told everyone. I'm going to make books when I grow up. Yeah, right, Lizzie said. You'll change your mind. No, I won't, I insisted. You'll see. There's lots of time to find out, Dad said. There's no rush. Yes, there was, I told him. I had to figure it out before the year of the dog was over. Oh, he said, laughing. Well, I'm sure all the dogs in the world are now satisfied. Chapter 27, American Holidays in the Chinese Way. On TV, after someone gets rich, everything changes. They get servants in fancy clothes and big houses. After I got rich, none of these things happened. Mom said I had to get even richer for those things. But I didn't mind, because I had figured out what I wanted to do when I grew up. And just in time, snow fell from the sky like clumps of white rice. The holiday season was here. Thanksgiving and Christmas were 2 of the most important holidays in the United States. I took Lizzie and Kiki a long time to show Mom and Dad how to celebrate them right. Every year for Thanksgiving, we had to talk my mom into buying a turkey. Why don't I get a chicken, Mom said. A turkey is too big. No, we all said in unison. We have to eat turkey on Thanksgiving. Okay, she said, but you have to eat leftovers, and Dad and I don't like turkey. Then Mom would rummage through the freezer food section, trying to find the smallest turkey possible. Lizzie tried to talk Mom into making mashed sweet potatoes like they do on TV. Mom made them, but she didn't put them in a bowl like Americans did. She molded them into small cakes and decorated them with herbs. They were like marigold-colored cupcakes with parsley sprinkles. We couldn't help but laugh when she saw them. "What?" Mom said. "Aren't they prettier this way?" Thanksgiving dinner at our house was always like that. We always had a lot of food covering the whole table, but it was a full of glassy rice noodles, stir-fried shrimp, crispy fried fish, meaty dumplings, tangy sweet and sour pork, a thick egg drop soup, white rice, and a very small turkey. The turkey was never in the middle of the table, but always on the side, because Mom only made it because we said we had to have it. The Pilgrims didn't eat like this in the first Thanksgiving, Lizzie said. And they probably never ate Thanksgiving food, I said. "Ah, but if they did," Dad said. "But I bet this is what they would have wanted for dinner." Christmas was the same way. Everyone in our neighborhood hung up Christmas lights all over their houses and trees. We tried to get Dad to do the same. Dad hung the lights, but didn't spend too much time doing it. Without putting on coats and boots, he ran outside to throw them in a bush. "Brr," he said, stomping in the snow from the bedroom slippers. "It's cold out there." Of course, everyone else's lights were nice arches and evenly spaced all over their trees and bushes, over lights like a blob with light bulbs flashing frantically. "It looks more natural this way," Dad said when we complained. "If a bush were ever to grow electric, rainbow-colored blinking lights, I'm sure it would look more like our bushes than anyone else's." And Mom hated buying a Christmas tree. "The poor tree," Mom said. "Do you know how many years it took for that tree to grow that big? And we want to cut it down just to decorate it for a couple weeks. How about we just decorate a rubber tree plant? It's almost as big as that tree." They didn't understand at all. But they did get us Christmas presents. Chinese people usually don't give gifts. They give lucky red envelopes with money. Mom said it was just more practical that way. But we told them for Christmas we were supposed to get presents. "But it's the same as if I give you money," Mom would argue. "What's the difference? I buy it for you or you buy it for yourself." We just shook our heads. "Okay," Mom said. "What do you want for Christmas?" Now this is more like Christmas. What did we want? Lizzie wanted clothes. Now that she was almost a teenager, she wanted to be stylish, probably for the boys. I thought clothes were the most boring gift ever. Kiki wanted toy ponies. For her Sandy Pan had 100 ponies. Kiki only had 4. She wanted to catch up with Sandy. I didn't think Mom would buy her 96 ponies, though. "What about you, Pacey?" Mom asked. I thought hard. At first, I thought maybe I wanted some new paints and drawing paper. Ever since I decided I was going to write and draw books, I needed a lot of supplies. But somehow, that didn't seem special enough for Christmas. In books, Christmas gifts were always fancy toys and games, so I thought about what kind of toy I wanted. At school, we were reading about a pioneer girl. She had a doll with a bonnet and a corn-flaked blue calico apron. It had a rag body and shiny clay head with painted blue eyes and black hair. They had called it a China doll. I decided I want one of those, so I can pretend I was a pioneer girl. "I want a China doll," I told Mom. You know the kind of dolls with the head made out of clay? I want one of those." Mom nodded her head. On Christmas morning, we were all excited to get up, even though we already knew what our presents were. It was fun running to go open them. Lizzie got a new pair of jeans and a peacock green and blue striped sweater she had wanted. Kiki got a lavender-colored toy pony with sparkled fake jewels on it. and I got a Chinese doll. It wasn't anything at all like what a pioneer girl had. It was a Chinese woman with long black hair wearing a pink silk dress and carrying flowers. I was so disappointed. Mom came down to see us open our gifts. What's wrong? She asked. Isn't that what you wanted? But I asked for a China doll, I said. You know, with the clay head? But it is a Chinese doll, Mom said. Her head is made out of porcelain. I even ordered it from China. It took a while to explain it. Finally, Mom said, I'm sorry, it wasn't what you wanted, but do you like the doll anyway? I looked at the doll. She had a nice face. It wasn't her fault she wasn't the same as the pioneer girls. Oh, well, I said, I guess I can pretend I'm a pioneer girl in China. Chapter 28. Here comes Chinese New Year. The one holiday Mom and Dad did know how to celebrate was Chinese New Year. Sometimes we thought they celebrated too well, especially when Mom made us clean. Casey, clean the mirrors, Mom would say. Lacey, vacuum the carpet. Kiki, polish the furniture. Everything has to be clean for Chinese New Year. And we would have to sweep and mop and brush and polish everything. We were so glad when we were finished. After that, Mom and Dad took out their Chinese New Year decorations. Mom hung up a bright red sign with black Chinese symbol on it upside down on the door. It says, good luck, Mom told us, hanging it upside down. Means good luck as has already come in. Mom took us shopping for new clothes. Everything has to be new for the new year, she told us. Oh, and I have to cut your hair, too. Mom always cut our hair as a part of the New Year tradition. We had to cut it the day before New Year's because it was bad luck to cut your hair on New Year's Day. Mom had us sit on a high stool in the kitchen and put a big white plastic cloth around our necks. Then she would wear her red and green plaid raincoat, took out scissors, and cut our hair. Lizzie wanted us to get our hair cut at a fancy salon in the mall, but Mom said it was too expensive. But I want it to look good, Lizzie pouted. They cut it just the same, Mom said. No, Lizzie said. A girl in my class says they cut her hair in layers. That's American hair, Mom said. You can't cut our hair in a special way. It's too straight. But if you cut it, Lizzie said, it looks like Patsy's and Kiki's hair. I'm older. Mine should look different. Okay, I'll cut it different. Did I ever tell you the time they cut my hair in school? Haircut at school. Do you remember how I told you that the schools in Taiwan were different from here? Every day, our uniforms had to be crisp and spotless, and our hair had to be straight and combed and never longer than our ears. They were very strict about the rules. Every day when we entered the school building, a teacher waited at the door and inspected us. She was a horrible woman. She had a long, sharp nose like a knife, and her hair was pulled back as tightly that it looked like it was painted on her scalp. She was always watching and waiting. Her eyes were scanning for other imperfections. My hair always grows so fast. Grandma had to cut it all the time, much more than she cut my sister's hair. I hated getting my hair cut. I always felt like it was such a bother. But one day, on my way to school, I touched my hair. It was a little bit too longer than my ears, but it was longer by such a small amount that I ignored it. I thought the teacher wouldn't notice. But as I got closer to school, I began to feel nervous. I could see her at the door studying the line of students the same way as a hungry cat would study a line of mice. I fluffed my hair up and hoping that it would make it look shorter. I saw the group of girls in front of me. I joined them, staying at the back. I hoped that they would hide me, but they didn't. As I walked through the door, the teacher pointed at me. She pointed at me with a stern face and seemed to be made out of steel. Nope, she barked at me like an army sergeant. Your hair is too long. I felt like a shrimp, or a fish, trapped under frozen water. As she reached in her pocket and took out a pair of scissors, she seized a handful of hair and felt like a cold metal points on my neck. Snip, snip. I saw my hair flutter down to the ground like a dying moth. Go, teacher said. Like a rabbit Hearing gunfire, I jumped away. When I hurried away from her, I touched my hair, almost stopped still from shock. She only cut one side. Only one side was cut very short, above my ear, while the other side was below my ear. It was lopsided. I looked ridiculous. For the whole day, I looked like I had a bad haircut. Mom finished. As soon as school was over, I ran all the way home so my grandma could cut it all one length. It's not the kind of different I mean, Lizzie said. I know, Mom said. When Lizzie's hair was done, I thought it looked like it always did, but Mom had a curling iron and the bangs and brushed them out. Lizzie's hair was all fluffy like Poodle's, but Lizzie looked in the mirror and she was happy. Chapter 29. Goodbye, Year of the Dog. That year, Melodies' family was coming over to celebrate Chinese New Year with us. Since it was on a Friday, we were all going to stay up late to welcome the new year. Mom chopped and baked and steamed twice as much as she did last year. We all had to help her in the kitchen, or she would never have gotten anything done in time. That year I made dumplings. They weren't too hard to make. Mom did all the hard parts. She rolled the dumpling skin and made the filling. I cut the circles out of dough using a cookie cutter. Then I spooned the filling in and folded the skin. My dumplings looked like little half moons. When we finished making dumplings, Mom boiled and fried them. Then I peeled the shrimp while Mom fried the fish and Lizzie chopped garlic. Dad added the extra part to the table to make it longer. Kiki filled the New Year tray all by herself. This time, we had more things to fill it with. Kiki put all the Chinese New Year melon candy, honey noodle cakes, and melon seeds, as well as M&Ms. I sat at the table. Kiki took out her polished serving spoons, and Lizzie scooped rice out of the big bowl like she was shoveling snow. Dad got out his special wine in delicate wine glasses that were soap bubbles with stems. All the while, with sizzling oil and vegetables popping in front of her like firecrackers, Mom kept frying and chopping. Then it was Chinese New Year. The phone started ringing and the doorbell rang. Melody's family came in. Gongji, gongji, Jing Nao Hao, they said. Happy Chinese New Year. Melody's parents handed Dad a big plant. Melody and Felix handed me a wooden crate overflowing with oranges. There were a lot of oranges. They kept jumping out of the crate like rabbits trying to escape. Why'd you give us so many oranges, I asked. We're never going to be able to eat all of them. It's to bring good luck. Don't you know? Melody told me. Not luck, Felix corrected her. Money. Chinese word for oranges sounds like the word for wealth. I'm glad I'm already rich, so I don't have to worry about that, I said. Then give the oranges back, Melody told me. Then I'll get rich, too. Hey, me too, Felix said. Kiki and Benji joined in as well. We peeled the oranges and shared them. I guess it was a good thing they had brought so many. That way, everyone could get rich. Time to eat, Mom called. Everyone hustled into the dining room, and then stared in awe. Mom had made so much food, even more than last year. This year, we had clams that looked like ocean stones, roasted duck with its head still on, fried rice with pink shrimp, steamed buns that looked like enormous marshmallows, pan-fried fish, jade green cabbage, golden brown dumplings, red marinated pork, and brownish black seaweed. Yum, Felix said. Let's eat. The year of the dog is over, Dad said as he poured the drinks. All of the adults got special Chinese wine, while the kids got juice. When Mom wasn't looking, Lizzie tasted the wine. She made a face as she drank it. Now it's the year of the pig, Mom said. My year, Lizzie added. You're a pig, Melly and I laughed. Oink, oink. Lizzie stuck her tongue out at us. For once, she couldn't think of anything to say back. The year of the dog was a good year, Dad continued. Don't you think? I think about the year of the dog was the year I met Melody, and she became my best friend. It was the year I won the prize, discovered my talent, and got rich. It was the year I found myself and decided I was going to make books when I grew up. The year of the dog had been a great year. Let's give a toast to the year of the dog, Dad said. We all raised our glass and clinked together. Goodbye, the year of the dog, I said. Goodbye.